Hey everybody, welcome to In the Red Zone. Sean Brown, Michael Johnson here, and it is time for Week 10 picks of college football. We're already there, Week 10. But before we do that, you need to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, hit like on that video and leave a comment. And also go join us, join as an In the Red Zone member, elite membership or a Hall of Fame membership. You got to go to our YouTube homepage or channel page and hit join. It's $1.99 a month for elite, $2.99 for Hall of Fame. You get all of our extra picks with that. So last week we did 7 extra picks. The elite and Hall of Fame members got to see that. I was 4-2. You were 3-3 on those picks.
3-3-1.
3-3-1, yeah. And I was 4-2-1, yeah. So anyway, and then I picked NFL games. So far 2-1 on those. Still have 2 games to go on that. But that and the NFL picks are for elite members. So if you want the extra content, the extra posts, you want to vote in our polls when we talk about who's going to win a game, go over and join as a member in the Red Zone. And just a quick shout out, our first 4 Red Zone members, Ann Moreno, the very first to sign up, Chris Clardy, he also was one who gave us the donation earlier in the year, the $50 donation.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you, Chris,
Thank you.
very much for joining. Micah Avgar, I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if it's wrong. And James Moore Jr. As of last time I checked, those are our 4 members. All 4 of them watched our extra picks videos. So, hey, great to have you guys along. We'll still do the free picks every week, 15 games, but we are doing extras for those of you who want to join. So, excuse me, by the way, I got a roll of toilet paper here. I've been having nosebleeds and stuffiness, and so we may take inadvertent breaks here and there, but if the nose starts bleeding, I got the toilet paper. So, okay, Week 9. I'll just start. I mean, the biggest one for me, Ohio State beats Penn State. It was pretty close for 3 quarters, but you know, championship teams rise in the 4th quarter. You know, that's where you really separate yourself as far as conditioning and things like that. And you know, Ohio State, their defense just went on a tear. They scored like 21 points almost, in like a minute or so, something like that. 13-point win. They did not cover, but heck of a win for Ohio State.
Yeah, it looked like they were in trouble there for a little bit. And then, you know, were able to get that the pick 6 from was it number 44, the defensive line?
Yeah, so he had like a forced fumble recovery, 2 interceptions. He had 6 tackles for a loss, I believe. His stats were unreal.
And I think I saw that he's like just starting to kind of come on.
Yeah, I can't even say his name. Tuamalale or something. I'm sorry, I can't say his name. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, and he's emerging. I mean, that's what happens at Ohio State. You get these guys. You know, we've had the Bosa guys who were there, and then somebody always steps up.
Yeah.
And he's the one who has stepped up so far. But that defense is playing tremendous football right now.
Yeah.
So Oklahoma beats Iowa State pretty easily, I would say.
Yeah, I think they're kind of settling back into their form for the first 3 games. It seems like they've, you know, Brent Venables has kind of gone away from some of those things that he was trying to do. But also what I'm seeing is that the players, now there are some miscues. I mean, there was a touchdown reception where a linebacker was out of placement, didn't know what guy he was supposed to go with. You need to get that?
No. Keep going.
So you're still kind of seeing some of those mistakes being made, but you know, Iowa State is a team that if you're not playing at your best, they can beat just about anybody in the Big 12. I know that you're going to look at their record and say they're the worst team in the Big 12, but they have the ability if you're not on your game. I mean, had this been in the middle of that 3-week loss or 3-game loss for Oklahoma, I would have said Iowa State would have probably won that game.
Yeah.
They were able to keep up with Oklahoma as far as points. You know, it was just towards the end that OU was able to kind of separate themselves. But yeah, it looks like a little bit less stress on my end as a fan. But I want to see them continue to build on that stuff. But so staying in Oklahoma State getting blanked by Kansas State.
You know what? Honestly, though, I have to say, you know, we both picked Oklahoma State. They were a 1-point favorite. And I was sitting here, I didn't say it last week, but I was sitting here thinking to myself, when I watched the game against Texas, They had so many injuries.
Yeah.
And they just look at the end of that game like beaten up.
Yeah.
And really, I kind of was sitting here thinking to myself, like, are they kind of spent? Like, they need a bye week.
Yeah.
Bad. Now, I didn't think they'd go out and get beat like 48-0.
Yeah.
I did not see that happening. But I didn't watch the game. I thought it'd be a good game, but I had other things going on.
To a backup quarterback. Now, Will Howard is a good quarterback.
He's been playing really well.
He is pretty good. And it just makes me jealous that it seems like every other Big 12 team has a serviceable backup quarterback. When Lincoln Riley was here, you had that kind of. I mean, who has Spencer Rattler and then Caleb Williams right behind him? Or even, while Baker was here, Kyler was right behind him.
Yeah.
And it just, I miss the days of stacking up on quarterbacks.
Listen, I think if Spencer Rattler had a crystal ball and could have saw Lincoln Riley was going to leave and Caleb Williams was going to leave, I don't think he would have left.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he would have stayed.
Maybe.
He didn't know. He left thinking Lincoln Riley was going to be there, and he had already basically committed to South Carolina. And so, last one, let's talk real quickly. Florida covers by 0.5 point against Georgia. That's when we were split.
I know I say it a lot, but there were a lot of games this week that either covered or didn't cover by 0.5 point.
Yeah. Cincinnati giving up a touchdown with 44 seconds to go to lose to UCF.
Yeah. That's just, that's sports in general for you.
Well, Ohio State, they go up by 20.
Yeah.
They get that pick six, and I was over in my recliner. Yeah, we covered, and then give up a cheap touchdown at the end because they go with a 3-down lineman, basically a prevent, and they're giving up 20-yard chunks.
Yeah, you got to think some of those head coaches that go into prevent defense at the end of games. Yeah. And they don't care. They could care less what any better makes, but they've got to have a thought in their head like, man, some people are going to be pissed this week.
Jim, no, you don't want to give up a touchdown.
Right.
You want to keep as few points as possible. Yeah. Plus, right after they scored, Penn State scores, Joel Klatt says, a lot of people happy with that touchdown. You know what he meant because a lot of people had Penn State points in that one. But Florida, they did okay. I'm going to say this, and people are going to give me flack, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I mentioned about with Tennessee, their backup quarterback, Joe Milton. Mm-hmm. I've said this in the past. The kid is gifted athletically, but he just doesn't have it upstairs.
Yeah.
And I feel like Anthony Richardson's the same way. The guy has got tremendous athletic ability, but I don't know if he understands, if he's smart enough to handle being a college quarterback, and certainly not good enough as an NFL. And point to that, one play as an example is 4th down at the very end of the game, and you're trying to do something, and he scrambles, he's getting hit, and it's 4th down, he just throws the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
That's like that last year when Milton was in, and he's running, and it was a game they lost, but they could have won, and he needed to get a 1st down. It's 4th and something, and there's the 1st down line, and he's running, and they're pursuing him, and he just steps out of bounds 1 yard short.
Man.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I see that with Richardson. I don't see a guy who's got it mentally to be able to handle the game.
It's situational football. You learn it, every, I wouldn't say Pop Warner, but maybe. But every high school, practices situational football. Like, you got to get a 1st down. You've got X number of yards to get, and they those programs set those in the off seasons, during fall camp. They spend a lot of time on things like that.
Yeah.
They even pump in crowd noise, and it just you got to be
crazy.
smart in those points in the game. West Virginia hanging with TCU
for a while,
for a good portion of that game.
Yeah.
I'm just looking down the list. Miami beating Virginia by 2 points.
Oh my goodness, 14-12. Miami was a 2.5 point favorite.
Yeah.
They don't. But here's the rub about that one. Did you look at the box score?
I think I did.
No touchdowns.
Yeah, it wasn't it a walk-off.
It was
field
in the
goal?
fourth. No, it was in the fourth. In the fourth overtime. When you get to like the third overtime, you go for touchdowns only. It's like alternating possessions for touchdowns.
Well, this says
you get
2
points.
Oh, there it was. 4 OT. Okay. Man.
Yeah, and it was at 2, so kind of a touchdown if you count that, but
there,
all field goals.
Then I'm thinking a different game
overtime.
that there was a walk-off field goal to
Unreal.
end the game.
Unreal. Miami is so bad.
Yeah.
I think they were better with Manny Diaz.
Well, and man, this last week, their recruiting is starting to kind of take off a little bit. And in the edits for some of these players, there's a stack of cash just sitting right there. They are definitely shelling out some money. UCF beating Cincinnati. Didn't see that coming.
USC hanging on against Arizona.
Yeah.
What the heck? Couldn't watch it because it was on Pac-12, and I don't get.
Well,
that's the only channel I don't get.
A lot of OU fans are saying, "Well, typical Lincoln Riley game." There was a lot of games when he coached at Oklahoma that it was close, like way closer than it should have been.
Well, that game should not have been that close at all.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to move on to our picks?
I think so. I'm just trying to look down the list and see if there were any that kind of stood out.
Tennessee took care of Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, I thought Kentucky could hang with them a little closer.
Yeah, I don't think they're on that level. Missouri beating South Carolina after South Carolina had, what was that?
They finally get in the top 25 and,
Well, they had, I think, a couple games there where they strung together some wins. Oh, since the Georgia loss, they beat Charlotte, SC State. See, that's the thing, is they get two really, really easy. But one game was moved from October 1st. But still, you're well into October and you're playing non-conference games.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the SEC, and I really hope OU kind of goes away from that. And I don't know if you have to move OU Texas. I doubt they will, but I just don't like the way that they've formatted the schedules where, this late into the season and you're playing an FCS school, like, Southeast Missouri State.
It's kind of a built-in bye week.
Yeah.
It's kind of smart.
Yeah, but if
late in the season, you're tired, you got injuries. And
if you have a tough game right after that, you know.
Well, they won't move OU Texas because it's going to be during State Fair.
That's
won't
true.
change that.
That's true.
All right, let's get to our Week 10 picks.
Yeah.
All right, we're picking 15 games for free picks. Like I said, go join as a member, and you'll get access to our extra picks, which will be a separate video plus the NFL picks. All right, let's get started. To be honest with you, I'm not citing like the 10th ranked defense. It just, stats don't mean anything. This weekend showed it. Eye test, I think, is more important, and knowing the holes in the FPI and who's weak and stuff. We've been pretty good with that. And then I'll throw in 2 locks this week. So first one, App State, 1.5 against Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina's only lost to Old Dominion. They're on fire, really. App State, you don't know which team's going to show up. It's a road game for App State. I'm not too confident. I think Coastal Carolina continues and moves to like 8-1. I think they're 7-1. They'll move to 8-1. I like Coastal Carolina outright win the game, so I got Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I like them too. The matchup predictor has App State as a 59% at winning that game, but I just wanted to look at so Appalachian State. They are giving up, they're giving up 251 yards through the air per game, and that's quite a bit. Grayson McCall, he's been at Coastal Carolina there for a little bit. He's thrown for 2,061 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Yeah.
Now, his QBR is 44th in the country at 67.4, but he's not turning the ball over.
Yeah.
He just he's tied for second in the country with 1 interception. I'm sure there's a ton of guys that are they're tied, but 19 touchdowns to 1 interception is really, really good. He's good for 29th in the country in passing yards. I'm taking Coastal Carolina as well.
Okay, Oregon State is at Washington. Washington is a 3.5-point favorite. Bottom line with this one, Washington have been finding ways to win, but all their games have been close, even against teams they should outright be beating.
Yeah.
Oregon State I think, is a really good football team. Now, if you look at, blanking on his name, Washington's quarterback, he played at Indiana. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Penix.
Penix. You look at his numbers, you look at Chance Nolan's, there is a big discrepancy there. Nolan was out a game or two when he got hurt, so I don't look at that too much. Bottom line is that Washington games have been close.
Yeah.
This game is one of the better teams that Washington has played in the last 4 weeks, and Washington might squeak out a win. but it's going to be a 3-point or less. And
Yeah.
so I've got Oregon State in the points.
Yeah, I'm taking Oregon State as well. This is where, going and looking at the trends as far as, if a team covers or not, this is where it can help you. Washington is 4-4 against the spread, and Oregon State is 6-2. So pretty big discrepancy there. It's also at Washington, I think. And so it's a Friday night game.
Friday night, yep.
9:30 Central, or is that Eastern? No, Central Standard.
Central time, yeah.
I know that there's a huge, you've said it, a big discrepancy in the quarterback stats, but there's more than just a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take Oregon State.
Okay, Oklahoma State is a 4-point favorite against Kansas. We know Oklahoma State just got blanked by Kansas State, just completely inept on all facets of the game, both sides of the ball. Look, I'm not going to rush to judgment and buy in that all of a sudden they can't play. Mike Gundy is a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
I do think they got guys that need to rest, honestly. Kansas, without Jalen Daniels, they're a beatable team. Being their backup quarterback, he's pretty good. He's not bad by any means, but I think the Oklahoma State team that we've seen all year is the one that shows up, not the one that played Kansas State last week. So they're heading up there. I mean, it'll be a sellout game at Kansas again. They're going to want to win, but I'm going to take Oklahoma State to cover 4 here.
This is kind of a tough one. Is Jalen Daniels out for the year?
Well, I mean, first report was he's out for the season. Then, he sent that tweet like news to me.
Yeah.
But he hasn't played since.
Right.
So I kind of think he is out for the year. I mean, he never said, I'm coming back this week or anything. There's never been a status update.
He may have said that just for a little bit of gamesmanship.
Probably.
Maybe, coach doesn't want to.
When he tweeted that, they were still undefeated. So I don't think he's playing. I mean, I think it's Bean from this point, the here on out.
Yeah, and since then, Kansas has lost every game. They lost to TCU, OU, Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely not the same team without.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma State, they're missing a lot of guys. I think I
are.
saw something like 12 or 13 players who contribute were out for the last 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. And they lost Taylor at the end of that Texas game. And
I think he was playing. He had hyperextended his knee, and I think he was playing in that game. But
You're leaning
4
Kansas,
points. I don't know. It's just both these teams are just beat up, and it's a tough call. But they're in Lawrence isn't near as bad as having to go to Manhattan. Manhattan gets a little bit more crazy than Lawrence does as far as their crowd. Reluctantly, I'm going to take Oklahoma State just because talent-wise, I think they're better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I don't like it. I wouldn't touch this game if you're betting money out there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take Oklahoma State.
All right, Michigan State is at Illinois. Illinois is a 16-point favorite. Illinois took care of business last week. They beat Nebraska. Michigan State lost again to Michigan. And Michigan State, at this point, they got to be just demoralized. You got two players as of now, maybe 3, facing charges for assault for what happened in the tunnel. I haven't seen the video. You have.
Yeah.
But point
there's
is, you can't
many
do that.
angles. I mean, there's
and that's a
there's
lot.
a lot of content.
Right,
on
but that has a lot to do with frustration of losing.
Yeah.
Because they lost.
And you get one of your rivals skipping along.
Yeah.
Who knows what he was saying, but nobody deserves to get jumped. But maybe when that team is going into their locker, don't rub it in their faces and skip along next to them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're just asking for it. I'm not saying it was deserved. Nobody deserves to get jumped like that or, helmets swung on them. But, gosh, I mean, just have a brain cell in your head, Your entire team just got held up so that Michigan State could go into their locker room.
Right.
And, and 2, I know they do this at the Cotton Bowl. They've done it forever. But having 2 teams go into the same tunnel is just about one of the dumbest
Well,
things that
they do that at Ohio State. What I hate is when the teams go in their locker room, they cross.
Yeah.
So Ohio
That's the
State,
same thing that happens at OU.
and it's dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb that's that way.
Like
But
OU's sideline is directly catty corner from where they come out.
Right.
And then the same thing with the away team.
Yeah.
Their catty corner from their corner of the end zone that they come out. So every single time they got to let the visiting team go, and those guys are lining up to be barking at them. Pre-game, I mean, so many fights have almost broke out just from them walking across. And I know it's football. You know, these guys are gonna meet at some point.
Yeah.
But before and after a game, when these guys are just revved up.
Well, any new stadium, the locker rooms need to be designed so teams are going the opposite end of the field to go to their locker room instead of the same side.
Or else you're just going to continue to have
OU
these.
Texas, they go to the same tunnel.
Right.
I mean,
I literally sat above the tunnel last year and saw both teams. I mean, they come kind of up to the tunnel around the same time. So those dudes are chirping at each other.
Right.
You know, especially after warm-ups and stuff too. It can get pretty crazy.
Back to the game, Illinois has one of the best defenses in the country. Not better than Ohio State's, but one of the best ones, and they show it week in, week out. I got Illinois covering 16.
I'm taking Illinois as well. They've got some off-the-field issues that they're going to be, maybe distracted with, now having players that are being charged with assault. They straight up jumped that guy. And so I don't know.
And they have to suspend those players.
Right.
And they're not going to be playing.
And they might not even take another snap for that team. So
so you got Illinois.
I'm taking Illinois.
All right, Texas is a 1-point favorite at Kansas State. Kansas State coming off the huge win over Oklahoma State we just talked about. But I'm not going to jump to conclusions on that.
Oh, it's 1 point.
It's 1 point. I'm still taking Kansas State to win the game. But I think it stays a very close game. I don't think it's a blowout or anything. I think it's a very tight game.
But it's one game. It's 1 point.
I know that, so I'm picking Kansas State.
Okay.
To win. Yes.
I thought you were saying I'm picking Kansas State to win, but not to cover.
No, I'm picking Kansas State. I am going to take them, but I really think this is a very tight game. The one thing that could happen though is, again, I didn't get to watch the Oklahoma State game, but from what I could tell, reading and everything, is that they got a lot of pressure on Spencer Sanders. And Quinn Ewers, if you get pressure on him, he's going to turn the ball over. He's going to quick throw. He's going to overthrow guys, underthrow guys. He's going to throw it out of bounds. He's going to throw picks. And I think Kansas State will get pressure on him. So I think that is probably the difference in the game.
Well, this is a 6 o'clock game there in the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. And
Kansas trying to get up there and rematch with TCU.
Yeah, totally. So they have everything in front of them. They kind of, I believe they control their own destiny at this point. But, they lost to TCU, who is right now the best team in the Big 12. And if you remember, was my dark horse at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Tip my hat to myself there. So this one's kind of weird too. Texas is coming off of a bye week, and then Kansas State. I'm taking Kansas State. They just whooped up on Oklahoma State, and I know Texas is kind of having some struggles right now. There's some things that they got to get figured out. I'm gonna say that the bye week might hurt Texas a little bit in that they're coming off of a loss, right, to Oklahoma State,
who just got throttled by the team you're about to play.
Right.
That's a mental thing right there too.
Yeah, and depending on this coaching staff, I've seen what can happen, not with a bye week, but I can see after a loss what a coaching staff does to those players. I think after losing to Kansas State, I think Oklahoma was just worn out by the time they played TCU because the coaches just rode them that entire week. And then they realized they had to dial that back a little bit because their guys were just exhausted. So it was probably, they had some days for rest, I'm sure. But I think that Kansas State is kind of got the momentum here, and I would say with a point, you almost have to take Kansas State.
Sounds good. Baylor is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 3-point favorite. I don't have a lot to say except Oklahoma lost 3. They've won their last 2, but I'm not buying into that. I think Baylor's just a better football team. I'm going to take Baylor for the outright win.
You son of a... No, when we're at this table, I don't take the hat off.
I think Oklahoma is a favorite because the FPI has them as a, on paper, better team than Baylor. And they are a better team with Dylan Gabriel, but that defense is still giving up a ton of points.
It's a little suspect. It's getting better. They are kind of filling some of the holes that need to be. I mean, Gentry Williams is a true freshman who came out and just, made a couple plays, looked really good. They were without, this last week, they were without Javonte Barnes, true freshman running back, who had an illness and had to stay back. He didn't travel with the team. But they're coming back to right? Are they
home? Oklahoma's home.
What week am I on here? I'm on week 9. I was wondering, where is that game at? No, 3 points. If it was 7 or more or 10, I'd start to put the brakes on it a little bit. But I'm going to disagree with you. I think OU is better than Baylor at full strength. But
I feel so confident this is one of my locks of the week.
Okay.
That's how confident I feel about this one.
I think that just anything I have to say about the game, I think that OU is fixing some of the problems that they've had in that 3-game skid. Mm-hmm. They've gone away from some of the things that got them in trouble for those games. And I think Brent Venables, just until he can get to the offseason, has made things simpler. Kind of dialed back some of the stuff that because his system is really complex. And so I think that we will see more and more improvement from the defense as we go, and then maybe next year will be the year that we kind of start to see not elite defense, but good defense. Stop giving up 30, 40. This game this last week was the first time. They gave up 42 points to Kansas. They gave up 49 to Texas, 55 to TCU, 41. So they'd just been giving up 40. But then they held Iowa State to 13. And Iowa State's offense isn't that good, but their defense is among one of the best in the Big 12. And they scored 27, enough to win. So I am taking OU.
All right, the next 2 games are 2 games that I wouldn't touch as far as betting, but we'll make a pick anyway. Iowa is at Purdue. Purdue is a 5.5-point favorite. Iowa can't score to save their life. I mean, their quarterback, Petrus, 3 touchdowns in 10 weeks. I mean, bad. Their running back, 3 touchdowns in 10 weeks. Bad. Yeah. I mean, their defense scores more than their offense. I mean, it is pathetic how bad the Iowa is on offense. Now, their defense is pretty good. I mean, and the way Purdue plays, they throw the ball all over the field. They're susceptible to their quarterback getting pressure. They're susceptible to throwing interceptions. Iowa's defense could get 2 pick sixes in this. This is not unfathomable for that to happen. And that probably will be all their scoring is their defense. Bottom line, I'm on the fence because I think the spread's I'm going to take Purdue because I got to make a pick, and Purdue has the offense. But like I said, I wouldn't put any money on this.
Yeah, these games are kind of tough where you see a spread attack going against just a hard-nosed defensive team. Sometimes you see a blowout because the defensive team just can't keep up. And then but you can also hamstring your team by scoring quickly, and then your defense is now out there a lot. So we could actually see Iowa score more in this game than they have, in the past. In the past few, they scored 33 against Northwestern. They scored 10 against Ohio State. They scored 6 against Illinois, 14 against Michigan, 27 against Rutgers. So, and you got to think Rutgers has a better defense than Purdue. And yes, I'm playing transitive properties here, but they're.
You like Iowa?
I don't. It's a tough one, like you said. because this is where kind of the gamesmanship and mentality of a team kind of come into play. But I'm going to stick with Purdue. Iowa just doesn't have anything offensively to be able to keep up if the game gets out of hand.
Okay. Next one is, so you said Purdue?
Yeah.
Okay, I just got to make sure I marked that right. Maryland is at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, again, 5.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
This is one where it's like, for both teams, which team's going to show up?
Right.
Is the Wisconsin team that we're used to, who is capable of winning any game, should have been a contender for Big Ten West? Is it going to be the one who lost to Washington State and who lost, I forget who else they lost to recently, and which Maryland team shows up?
Michigan State, they've lost to Illinois, Ohio State. Wisconsin did just beat Purdue. They're coming off a bye week.
Yeah. Well, I've got Wisconsin, but
both teams are coming off of bye weeks.
Okay. Well, I've got Wisconsin, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if Maryland doesn't win or cover this. So it's just to make a pick.
Yeah, and
but
there's
Wisconsin's
quite a few games
at home, so that's the element that I'm going to take.
There's quite a few games here that they've played, similar opponents. So Wisconsin beat Purdue 35-24. Maryland lost to Purdue 31-29. Maryland beat Northwestern 31-24. Wisconsin beat Northwestern 42-7. So Wisconsin, you can kind of see. You've also got Michigan State, where Maryland beat them 27-13, and Wisconsin lost to Michigan State in a double overtime game. So, in 2 out of the 3 games, Wisconsin had a better showing. It's at home. I don't like that they're favored by 5.5. I almost want to take Maryland just to keep it a really close game, like 3 points.
Yeah. Is that what you're doing? Take Maryland?
Yeah, man. I just want to check the last couple games. They've kept, even in their wins, they've kept them kind of close. 38-33 against Indiana. I'm going to take I'm going to take Maryland. Taking Maryland.
All right, switcheroo there. Okay.
Not a switch, because I did not have that one picked.
Okay, all right. Not a switch.
So
hopefully it works for you then.
Knock on wood.
Okay, next one. Ohio State, 36.5-point favorite against Northwestern. Northwestern's only win of the season, the opener against Nebraska. Since then, Helinski has been terrible at quarterback. We know what Ohio State's done, although I will just say this. I talked about how Quinn Ewers, when he gets pressure, he just gets rattled, doesn't make good throws.
Yeah.
We saw that out of C.J. Stroud, too. When he's got a clean pocket and he can sit in the pocket, he can tear you apart. But when he gets rattled and gets pressured, he makes some bad throws. He rushes some stuff, not to the extent of Quinn Ewers. I think he still is going to win the Heisman. But I'll tell you what, I kind of question his ability to play in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to succeed in the NFL.
I was thinking about that. I heard some NFL guys talking about Justin Fields.
Yeah.
The Bears are allowing him to run a little bit, so it's kind of opening up his skill set a little bit more. And I was just thinking, man, out of all these quarterbacks for Ohio State that are now in the league, how many are still starting right now?
Well, Fields, and then, unfortunately, Dwayne Haskins was a backup at Pittsburgh, and then we know what happened with him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fields might. Are those the only 2 right now?
Because you had Cardell Jones, but
Jones was jumped around,
one of the other
went to XFL,
leagues.
Didn't even succeed there with Washington. So I think he's out of the league. And then J.T. Barrett never really made it. He was on a Saints practice squad for a while. And
Braxton Miller turned into a wide receiver.
And so did Terrell Pryor.
Yeah.
Pryor might still be in the league, but I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
But
it just out of all
these
guys,
going all the way back though, Ohio State quarterbacks have never been overly successful in the NFL.
Yeah.
You can go all the way back past Bobby Hoying, Art Schlechter, and all that. I mean, they just have never produced a great NFL quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
So-
it used to be, how long did Alabama not have, a guy
Yeah.
really in the NFL? All these big time schools. It was your Georgias, your Purdues, or kind of the smaller, even like San Diego State, or just as smaller schools like that seem to have the Cal, UCLA. I don't know. The big powerhouses weren't really the ones that had these.
Well,
but now it's kind of turning into that.
But you look at the top two quarterbacks, arguably playing right now, not all time. Obviously, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are great.
Yeah.
But really, the top two quarterbacks in the NFL, as far as how they're playing, is Patrick Mahomes and Buffalo's quarterback. I lost his name.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. One came from Texas Tech. The other came from Wyoming.
Yeah.
And at Wyoming, I mean, Josh Allen had to pretty much send out tapes to everybody just to try to get an offer.
Yeah.
And Wyoming was the only one. And now he's an elite NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And so it's just, a lot of that comes down to two, in my opinion, is when it comes down to recruiting, the way they rank players, 4 stars, 5 stars, they pretty much almost only look at like the big schools in the states, like here in Oklahoma, 6A, in Ohio,
unless
Division
your
1,
last name
or
is
Division
Manning.
2. Well, except for that. But what I'm saying is, there's schools out there who are, in this case, 3A or 4A in Oklahoma, or Division 5 in Ohio, which are small schools, but those kids don't even get considered.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter how good they are. They don't play against what they call elite. So there are so many great athletes out there to get recruited that the big schools just pass over.
Right.
And it's
Well, like Baker Mayfield. I mean, he was sub 6 foot.
yeah.
He was like right at 5'11", and never got an offer, and decided to walk on at Texas Tech because he lived in Austin and
As an OU fan.
right, and so didn't get. I think it was Mac Brown back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got looked over and then walked on to OU, and
Yeah.
man, the rest is history. But yeah, you're right. These big high schools, like down in Texas, you have Allen, Denton, Geyer now.
And then you got those coaches who are friends with these college coaches,
Right.
and they kind of push them along.
Yeah.
And there's a lot
or
of
if your
kids that get
dad's a
looked over.
coach, like I'm thinking about, last year we watched Gunnar Gundy out there throwing, and he had a wide receiver that dropped a few passes, but I didn't look at him and think, man, this kid's going to be a superstar in college. I mean, maybe with some development, but he did have a couple long balls.
Okay, back to this game, Ohio State 36.5. Bottom line, this could be a shutout for the OSU defense.
Yeah.
Northwestern's pretty bad. The good teams they've played, I think they scored 7 in each of those games. This could be a total shutout. It's 48-0, maybe like Kansas State over Oklahoma State. I got the Buckeyes covering easily, 36.5.
Yeah, I'm taking that as well. 33-13. They gave up 33 points to Iowa. I mean, that's insane.
That tells you something.
Then Maryland scores 31 on them. Wisconsin scores 32. Now Penn State, they did hold to 17 points, but they also only scored 7. So, and then Miami of Ohio, they lost to Miami of Ohio.
Yeah.
So I've got Oklahoma State. Ohio State.
Air Force is a 6-point favorite against Army. This is an intriguing game for me. Both teams really run the ball. Air Force, though, has the ability when they need to throw the ball. I watched an Air Force game earlier this year. I think it was Colorado State, maybe. And their running back, I think his last name's Daniels. He's only 57 yards away from breaking 1,000. So he's almost at 1,000 yards. So that's averaging about almost 100 yards a game. So, like I said, both teams run the ball through out the wazoo. I like Air Force on the road. I like them to win by 7. So I'm going to take Air Force cover 6.
Yeah, I don't know much about the service academies, but so Daniels, Hazik Daniels is their quarterback, senior quarterback, and he's rushed for, let's see, well, he's only thrown for 579 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Where's his rushing stats?
Oh, and we lost a light.
We lost a
Oh,
light.
boy. That's okay. All right. We'll take a break after this and get it fixed.
So his rushing, he's rushed for 80 times for 358 yards and 4 touchdowns. But yeah, Roberts, the guy, Brad Roberts, who you're
that's
talking
what I'm thinking
about. He's sitting at 943. He's, just shy of 1,000 yards on the season, 13 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with your pick and go Air Force. I don't know much. I know Army can control the ball, but they've dropped 4 games already in the season.
Yeah.
7 points isn't that much to me, so I'll take Air Force.
We're going to take a quick break so we can fix our light, and then we'll be right back to finish up with the last 5 games. Good. Okay, guys, thanks. Welcome back. We got 5 games left to go. Kentucky is a 2-point favorite at Missouri. Missouri looked good against South Carolina. Kentucky, I mean, that's really tough coming off a loss like they had against Tennessee.
Yeah.
And can they rebound? They got to go right back on the road to Missouri. 2 points is not much. I think Missouri wins the game. I got Missouri.
You got Missouri?
I'm taking Missouri.
I thought you were taking Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm taking Missouri.
Yeah. So Missouri just they give up almost 200 yards passing per game. They're almost giving up as many points as they're scoring. They're on a 2-game win streak, but that's to Vanderbilt and South Carolina. And then Kentucky did lose to South Carolina, 24-14. They lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Tennessee. So it seems like maybe some of these teams that like to pass the ball quite a bit are giving Kentucky some problems.
Yeah.
As far as Missouri's quarterback, that is Brady Cook. He's got 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the year, compared to Will Levis, who is sitting on 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, still coughing up the ball quite a bit. Man, I'm gonna say this is a, well, shoot. Who's favored? Kentucky. I'm going to say Kentucky wins by 1 point. I'm going to take Missouri with you.
Okay. You got Missouri. Florida is at Texas A&M. Texas A&M, a 3.5-point favorite. This one goes back to Texas A&M being a favorite just because of the FPI. Florida is clearly a better team than Texas A&M. I got Florida.
Well, Florida just seems to have they don't seem to have the issues that A&M is having right now.
Yeah.
They did just lose out on I think 1 or 2 high-ranked recruits that everybody was thinking were either going to go to Alabama or Florida, but that has nothing to do with our games here. But Texas A&M they're in trouble. I mean, they just I don't know where another win comes the rest of the year for them. I'd have to look further into their schedule, but
you taking Florida?
I'm taking Florida in this because Texas A&M just does not. They just have too many problems. I mean, they're on a 4-game losing streak, and they've got Florida this week. Then they have Auburn, who they could lose to. UMass, they'll likely win that game unless just something crazy happens. But then they have LSU, so they still have a pretty tough. And that game against Auburn is at Auburn. I'm taking Florida in this. They did lose to Georgia and LSU these last 2 weeks, but Texas A&M just is bad right now. They're just bad.
Syracuse is at Pitt. Pitt, a 3.5-point favorite. Syracuse lost 2 straight now, losing to Clemson in the close one. Then they lost at home to Notre Dame last week. But I have to believe that they are a good football team that can bounce back.
Syracuse?
I believe so. They're still only giving up 17 points a game. So that's their average. They're the dogs. I'm taking Syracuse.
Last 2 weeks, though, they've given up 27 to Clemson. They gave up 41 to a Notre Dame team who had slid off the rails. Pitt now has lost their last 2. They've lost their last 3 out of their last 5 games. Lost to North Carolina by quite a bit. They lost to Louisville 24-10. And this is Pitt I'm talking about. Syracuse, man, I don't know. I don't know with this one. Keaton Slovis just not really
hasn't been playing like we thought he would.
Hadn't had a crazy good year. I mean, at the beginning of the year, remember Pitt was supposed to be
West Virginia backyard brawl. They were going to be the team to contend against Clemson.
Right. So I don't know. I'm gonna take Syracuse with you. I don't like it, but I'll take Syracuse.
It's tough. It's a tough one to play. Oh, by the way, the Florida Texas A&M game, since I didn't tell you, that's my second lock of the week.
Okay.
Florida beat at least covering against Texas A&M. Okay, next one, the big one, the one everybody's been waiting for our picks. Number 1, Georgia at home, a 9-point favorite against Tennessee, who is currently tied for number 2 with Ohio State in the AP poll. But still, 1 versus 2. Georgia, Tennessee. It's at Georgia. Georgia is a 9-point favorite, and I've watched both these teams. I don't care who wins this game. Neither team, whichever team wins this game, is not winning by more than 9 points.
Right.
So I'm taking Tennessee just because of the dog.
I'm too.
If Georgia was the dog, I'd take Georgia because this game is going to be tight. It's going to be close. It's going to be a nail biter, and it is not. Nobody's winning by more than 9 points.
And this will tell you how just you can't really trust the matchup predictor.
Right.
It has Georgia as a 74.9% chance of winning
because it's all based on paper how they should be playing, and Tennessee is eclipsing what they are on paper.
Yeah.
Georgia is playing as they should be.
Yeah.
And that's the deal. I mean, a lot of this FPI is also based on how they performed last year, how these players performed last year, the recruits they brought in. And Tennessee is just far and away better than anything anybody would ever think.
So some of the stats between the 2 quarterbacks, Hendon Hooker has 2,338 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought earlier when I was reading off those stats of 1 interception, I think 9 touchdowns. That's incredible that you have that many. And he's attempted 219 passes with 1 interception. That's awesome. Stetson Bennett is sitting at 2,349 yards. So there's a 11-point swing in the total yardage.
Yeah.
But Stetson Bennett has thrown 267 passes compared to 219 from Hendon Hooker.
Yep.
Stetson Bennett sitting on 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So not terrible, but with a well-balanced team, you'd like to see more touchdowns this late in the season.
Well, I noticed in that game against Florida, there was times there late in the game when Bennett was coming to the line, he was changing the play, throwing it, being incomplete, and coaches are just losing their mind because they want him to run the ball.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I saw this, I'm checking off, and no, you're stopping the clock. Like, we don't want that. We want to run the ball. And so I think clearly he feels confident enough to check out of things when he wants to. In a game like this, I think you need to stick to your game plan unless it's obvious. So how much Hooker will do that, I don't know. Now, I will say this, though. As far as the quarterbacks go, if Georgia lost Stetson Bennett, I think they could still be competitive and win. If Tennessee loses Hooker, their season's over.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Their season's over if they lose him. If I'm Georgia, now I don't condone people playing dirty, and I'm not saying go play dirty, but what I am saying is if you're on that defensive line, if you're a linebacker blitzing, if you can get some hard shots in on him and sore up some ribs, make him uncomfortable to where he's off his game, I mean, that might be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying intentionally, but if you can go in low and get a shot on them ribs or whatever, you do it. And I guarantee you those players, even if the coaches aren't telling them, they know that.
Yeah.
So they're going to be looking to try to put him in some pain.
Yeah.
To get him out of his game, out of his comfort zone.
So now, the only thing here is Tennessee is giving up 300 yards through the air per game.
Yeah.
That's the big discrepancy stat-wise that I see. Both teams are giving up under 100 yards rushing, but the biggest thing on paper is that. But they're throwing for their total yards. They're at 553 yards per game. Georgia is at 530 yards per game. But Tennessee is giving up 21 points, whereas Georgia is giving up only 10.5 points per game.
Yeah.
Tennessee's scoring almost 50. Georgia's scoring just over 40 per game. So, but I think this game comes down to the wire. I think it's whoever has the ball last.
Yeah.
Tennessee has already beaten Alabama, so they know just getting on that field, they deserve to be there.
And that was a 3-point game. This one could be a 3-point game.
Right.
So
I'm taking Tennessee as well. I think that spread is way too high.
Yeah.
So give me Tennessee.
Last one, Alabama, 12-point favorite at LSU. Alabama has been struggling on the road all year long. They don't play well on the road. LSU is kind of finding an identity. They're playing well, especially at home.
Yeah.
Alabama, Nick Saban. Nick Saban is the best coach in college football. He's the GOAT. Alabama might find a way to win this game, but they don't cover 12. I got LSU in this one.
Okay. Man, it is weird looking kind of back at Alabama's last few games. They beat Mississippi State 30-6, and then they had a bye week. But they lose to Tennessee, and then they beat Texas A&M just by 4 points. But that was the game, I believe, Bryce Young went out, got hurt. Before that, they beat Arkansas 49-26. They destroyed Vanderbilt 55-3. LSU has won the last 4 out of their last 5 games. They did get demolished by Tennessee just a few weeks ago, but they beat Florida.
Yeah, Swamp's going to be crazy when Alabama comes down there.
It's going to be a crazy game. And when's the last time you remember Alabama being out of the top 5 in the AP? I believe, is it
2019 when LSU went undefeated?
Is it this week that college football playoff rankings
Tuesday
come
night?
out? Yeah.
Yep. So you're watching our video on Monday. If you're watching the premiere, it's Tuesday night.
So, man, I'm going to take Alabama. I'll go against you on this one.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of feel like for the playoff committee, how that Georgia Tennessee game finishes will go a long ways in determining.
Oh, totally.
Because if Tennessee wins and it's razor thin, it'll be Tennessee 1, Georgia 2. I don't think they drop even with a loss that tight. Maybe the 3, but Georgia's not going to drop much. If Tennessee loses, then that solidifies Georgia and Ohio State, and I think you probably see Tennessee drop to as low as 6. So and everybody bumps up, maybe 7. So with a loss to Georgia, even if it's tight. So, but yeah. Guys, that's our Week 10 picks. Always subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and then also go over and join in the Red Zone as an Elite or Hall of Fame member. Just to let you know, our extra bonus picks video will be available by the time you're watching this. If you're a member, you can go watch those picks. The games we're picking in our bonus picks video: Texas Tech, TCU, Penn State, Indiana, Arizona, Utah, Michigan versus Rutgers, Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami, and Wake Forest, NC State. And then if you're a Hall of Fame member, by Wednesday, you'll see our NFL picks. So, and that's under the membership tab on our channel page on YouTube. So you have to join. You have to be on a PC or laptop or something to join. You can't do it by your phone yet. It's a hiccup with YouTube. They got to figure that out. So, hey guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care.